Hello, everybody in 11 Plus Journey. My name is Gemma Zoe Smith, and I'm going to be doing a talk this evening on what to do with your summer plans if you've got 4 months to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple of minutes just to let everybody who needs to join us, and we will be beginning in just a couple of minutes. So I'm just going to take a look, make sure that we're live, make sure that everybody can hear us. If you can hear me, please do let me know in the comments so that I do not know if I'm shouting into the abyss. Yeah, just drop me a comment and I should be able to know that you're there. I think some people can see me. As I said, we'll start in a moment with summer plans, what to do with 4 months to go. So 4 months to go. What do we do with 11 Plus? Perfect. Thank you for whomever has just told me that they are here. It's good to have you guys all with us. Perfect. Okay. So those of you who will be joining us, likely to be parents, if you are a student, then please do ask your parent to watch this. But this is useful for you guys as well. But mainly, I'll be talking to parents this evening about what we can do to help the preparation go a little bit smoothly over summer, and what can you do with 4 months to go till that final exam. Maybe a little bit longer for some of you, maybe not. And how can we make sure that we have got people coming in who are students who are coming in who are confident, who are scoring highly, and who know their ability. So for those of you who have just joined us, hello, my name is Gemma Zoe Smith, and this evening we will be talking about the summer plans 4 months to go. So who am I? You may see me around here on the 11 Plus Journey. I am an admin here. I run my own tuition agency. It's called the Education Hotel. And I've also tutored for over 11 years now. So I myself went to a grammar school. I went to Chancellor County High School. I took the 11 Plus for it. From there, I went to Oxford University. I did a biochemistry degree, a master's in genetics, a PGCE, so I'm a qualified teacher. One of the things that I do is I pop up here. I do TikTok videos. So if you've not checked out those TikTok videos for the 11 Plus Journey, we do have a TikTok. It's worth checking out. But I also work alongside Saba to help write some of the planners and also the online course that she's just put out. I myself, under the Education Hotel, run holiday courses, so summer courses, May half-term courses, and generally kind of provide advice in terms of 11 plus. So that's a little bit about me. Let's get straight into it. We've got May half-term coming up. For some of you, that might be a 2-week. For some of you, it might be a 1 week. What does that really mean? Well, year 5, that's the last chance before summer in terms of holidays. So that is the last focus point that we can be doing something. So really, if you're looking at this and you're a year 5 parent or a year 5 student, now in half term is your time to focus on one area. And that one area should have been shown in practice papers or mocks, looking at where do you need to focus. And I'll talk a little bit more about mocks later. But hopefully, for those of you that are doing practice papers at home, those of you that are doing mocks elsewhere, these should be showing up the areas that you need to focus on and the areas that you're really strong at. Now, obviously, at this time of year, we are not expecting consistent scores. I know lots of you write on the group that you're struggling with consistency, and it is really quite typical of this time. We see this kind of fluctuation, but in reality, we're looking for patterns within those mock exams. So groups of questions that maybe you're getting wrong, topics that your child's getting wrong, areas where you can say, okay, maybe the comprehension's a little bit lower than the math, for example, or even just within the math. I know that I need to work on timetables, or I know I need to work on highest common factor type questions, long multiplication questions. Something should be coming out of those. If it is all over the place, then what that is saying is that we need to recap and revisit a lot of topics. If it's within a certain area, then my advice would be to really focus on that in half term. If you're a year 4 parent, now is a great time to start looking into if you're going to consider tuition next year. You might have already been taking tuition for year 4, you might be sticking with that, you might be moving, but now is a good time to start looking around, to start seeing, okay, what can we do in September? Mainly because everything gets booked fairly quickly. I know from running our tuition agency, we get booked up, especially for things like summer, really quite quickly in advance. Try and up level your child. If they're in year 4, then putting them alongside some year 5s can also help to show them what are they expected to do when they reach that point. So really consider how you spend that May half term. The May half term ideally should be spent on that one topic, really focusing on what to go through. A short kind of disclaimer, I am running a comprehension and creative writing course next week. If it is something that is interesting for you and your child, do feel free to drop me a message and I will go into some more detail, but that is not what this live is for. So I'm going to carry on. So May half term should be that point where you are focused, where you have that specific area, and hopefully you can make that gain so that the next time you come to me, the practice paper or the mock, then you can put all of those tips into practice, all those techniques, and you will see that increase. Then we've got the last actual half term of the year. And again, I'm talking to both kind of year 4 and year 5, but largely this is a year 5 kind of talk. Celebrate. The first thing that I really want you to do is to celebrate the year, because if you are doing 11 plus and if you are in year 5, summer is going to be working. There's not a point where you will spend that 2 months necessarily off. You might do less work than others, but you are still going to be working. And so I really want you to celebrate that year, and especially reminding your child how far they've come in this year. It can be really, really easy just to get very narrow into my child is scoring this percentage in a paper and not to consider how much progress they have made until this point. So, go out, celebrate, go to the park, spend some time together, and just generally discuss the progress that you've made, both of you, because you are a team for this, and celebrate how far you have come. And then what I want you to do is to sit down and make sure that you are ready to work as a team for the summer break. So I call this getting buy-in. So if you're a student and you are looking to approach your summer, then remind yourself why you wanted to go to this school. So if you are a parent, again, take part in that reminder process. It might be that you go and you visit the school. If they've got a school play going on, if they have a summer fete, it's a really great time to just see the school again, remind yourself of those goals, see where you're going, and really know that, okay, this is what it's going to take to get here. Summer is but a couple of months. And if you can really work during those few summer months, then the marks will follow. So make sure that you are ready to work as a team together for that summer break. So working on the summer break and reminding yourselves that you are working together, whether you're working with a tutor, whether you're working on your own, make sure that you really are working together for the same goal. If you are working with your child and you are setting the schedule, again, parents, do make sure that you've discussed this with your child so they know what's coming up. So it's not a big shock when on the first day of the summer holidays, you go, right, we're going to sit down and we're going to do a load of 11 plus practice. Because although you might have been talking about this, and although you may have mentioned it, you really want to have that time, hold that space to have those discussions with your child. Because your child may think 11 plus work is just 1 day a week, like you have been doing in school. Whereas in your mind, it could be every single day. So really have a think, sit down, discuss that schedule. My favorite thing to do, print out the schedule and stick it on the fridge. That way, there's no arguments. There's no arguments of you said, oh, but you said I could do this. You said this could happen. If it's on the fridge, it's on the schedule. So that for me is a personal thing. When I work with students residentially, I'm actually residential at the moment, then there is a schedule stuck on the fridge and it says what we are doing every single day. They are aware of that schedule, and therefore when there is any pushback, we refer to the schedule. Now, parents, this keeps you accountable too. because it can be really tempting, especially as we come to the end of half term and especially as our children get tired, to go, oh, I'm just going to put an extra hour in. Oh, that exam didn't go quite as well as I wanted, so I'm just going to do this extra piece. I'm just going to do an extra hour, extra this. And actually, over summer, what we want is nice routine. So if you are doing a summer course, put it down on the schedule so that they know. So for ours, we do them 9 till 11 or 6 till 8 specifically, so that those 2 blocks can go straight into a schedule. And the rest of the day is up to you. So make sure that schedule's available. Make sure that you've sat down, you've reminded your child, and if you are a student, you've reminded yourself why you are going for this school. Why do you want to go there? Remind yourself of that. Watch the videos, have a look at their website, tour it if you can. And then start to think about, when you're thinking about the schedule, not focusing just on past papers, because yes, they're important at this point. And yes, they're going to be really useful in terms of building skills and increasing scores. And exam technique is really, really important. It starts to get more and more important as we get towards the exams. But one of the things that we do need to watch out for is that burnout, that idea of boredom that can come from just doing past papers. So make sure that there is a variety of stuff you're doing, whether that is a bit of creative writing, a bit of mental math, a bit of vocab practice. Those are all really important skills. Even if you don't have creative writing in your test, it can really help with comprehension. But it's about making sure that there is that change, there is that variation that you've got in your schedule. So add in online games, add in a chance for you guys I really like playing word board games. So one of the things I do at the end of about this time with my students is we start playing a load of board games. And it seems silly. It seems as though we're maybe slowing down, but actually what we're doing is keeping those skills really relevant, really exciting, and making sure that that goes alongside with the past papers and the worksheets and the rewording of questions. Then I have a reminder. And actually what I'm going to do with these courses, with these online lives, is they're a part of a series. So this is the 4 months one to go. I'm going to come back when there's 3. Reminder for those of you that are looking towards summer courses get booked quickly. Mock exams, they get booked quickly. Exam registration, it closes earlier than you think it does. Make sure you have your ducks in a row, so you know exactly what's going on. You know the dates of the exam. You know when you've got those summer courses booked in. You know when you've got those mocks booked in. You know that you've done the registration part. Make sure that those ducks are in a row. And even if you're in year 4, remembering that group classes especially get booked for September, make sure that you are ahead of the game. So you want to be nice and organized, especially at this point. We've got 4 months. We've got a bit of time before summer. We're only just approaching May half term, but we want to make sure that you really are prepared to go through summer. And there is a lot sometimes to get through with registration and mocks and summer courses and lots of things going around. You want to make sure that you really have booked them up. For example, last year, I think we sold out of some of our courses by, I think it was mid-June, and they don't run until July. So it's just worth being aware that you do need to get those things in a row. They're not necessarily things you can do last minute. Obviously, at this point, it's useful to mention the fact that if you are stuck, you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh, I might need a little bit more help on this. I don't know what I need to be doing when it comes to picking schools, registering for schools. The 11 Plus Journey, and I have bought out a course. So the 11 Plus Journey running these online, it's an online course that I've contributed to, which does really take you through everything that you would need to do. So if you are like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, then please do go and check that out. That has been created for you. If you're looking for summer courses, May half term courses, again, just speak to me. But now is the time to start looking, to start getting those ducks in a row. And the same thing for books, the same thing for past papers. You don't want to be running to WH Smith in the middle of middle of summer and finding, they've sold everything out, you have to get on Amazon, they don't have it on Amazon. It's about making sure that all those ducks are in a row, making sure that you do know what you're doing, the schedule's up, the plan is up, and that your child's aware of it. The worst thing that you've got is them saying, I didn't know that I was doing this, because that leads to arguments, and that's not what we want. We want you working together as a team as we head into those last couple of months. Then if we start looking at mocks, now I know because of the comments on the group that loads of you have been doing mock exams, you've been doing practice papers, and you're starting to go, okay, right, I can see this moving up and down. And I'm here to tell you it's normal. It happens every year, so don't worry. And there will be a point as well where typically we see this point where it goes an absolute bomb. And that's fine. Part of these mocks, part of this process is getting your child used to taking exams, getting them used to sitting there, taking that exam, spending the amount of time on it. Exam technique, as I've said before, it becomes really important. Things like timings, things like being able to actually check your work as opposed to just looking and seeing that there is an answer. Actually checking is a real skill that needs to be learnt, and it's not a skill that often gets taught as part of an 11 plus topic. So it is something that really needs focusing on. So use these mocks and definitely kind of work with the mock providers. They should be providing you with some either percentages or rankings or whatever they're presenting you with, but use it to inform what you're doing, but don't panic about it. Is my big part of advice on this, because often we see people who do a mock and then they really panic. They think, oh, my child's not going to score what they think they're scoring. A mock is one thing. It's one snapshot, and it should be providing you with things that you need to do after. Whether that is you take that mock, when you take that mock and you take it and you send it on to a tutor, or whether you take it and you work with it at home. It doesn't matter. You should be able to take that. Now, standardization. I just wanted to spend a moment to discuss about that, because we get a lot of comments in the group about my child is scoring X percent. Percentages are really, really hard to work with, and it's annoying because that means that's the thing that you get when you do a past paper, especially at home. So standardization is the process by which the 11 plus takes providers, they take the raw marks and then they apply a formula, and that formula takes into account age, and it basically takes your percentage and it turns it into a scoring. Now, that happens. Schools have different admissions policies, so some have priority over catchment, some don't, some give different exams. It all can be quite hard to gauge where your child is at this point. And this is the bit that I really wanted to talk about, because I know that 4 months to go, we're looking at mocks. And that's often where we're looking. We're looking at PTA mocks, we're looking at private mocks, we're looking at doing papers at home. The best thing you can do is to get a ranking or a spread of marks. So if your mock provider will provide that to you, you want to know where were they in the ranking, what did everyone else score, what were the percentage scores? So you can see what was my child doing in relation to others. The second part is to see about the feedback. So is a child getting feedback on the topics that they're getting wrong? Are you getting a marked version of their script? And if so, can you see what topics they are struggling with? One of the things that I find really useful is if you've got a child who's doing lots of practice papers at home, then pick out all of the questions that they are getting incorrect and stick them. I stick them in an Excel spreadsheet. Once you've done that for a little while, whether that is a mock exam, whether that's practice papers at home, whatever that is, you will start to see that there's patterns. Either all over the shop, there's no pattern to it, in which case what we're seeing there is something maybe to do with exam technique, especially if they're struggling in the middle or at the end. means that they're rushing, or it means they're getting distracted. Or we're looking at something where they need to really recap a lot. But most of the time what we find is that there's small groups of questions that typically a child will struggle with at this point. And that is especially year 5. I'm talking really at year 5 at this point. So if we're coming across someone who is at year 5 and they are struggling with, say, percentages, then that's what you need to focus on. But unless you track it, unless you get the feedback from mock providers or you track it yourself at home, you won't necessarily see those patterns, because percentages might come up twice in a paper. That's it. And yes, your child might not score on both of those, but it can be very hard to tell amongst the noise of all the rest. If you start snipping out those questions and start keeping them, then you'll start to see the pattern. And it also can help you to write your own mini papers on the areas that they typically are getting wrong and re-give those questions to them. In things like comprehension, it will show you, are they struggling with inference? Are they struggling when the wording is particularly tricky? So I've done a mock paper with one of my students recently, and it was fairly old style language, and they really struggled with it. And that showed us that we need to work on decoding some of that old language. So look at the patterns, really take time when you're doing those practice papers, even if they're mocked and they've been marked by someone else, really go through them. One of the things that I find really useful, we do mock exams, but we have a video of going through those mock exams. And it's useful to be able to see, right, what has a student done versus what they should have done. And again, I've put down here, and this is a bit of an unusual advice maybe, but if you can, parents, watch your child do a mock or a practice paper. You'll see the exam technique that they're using. So you'll see, do they rush at the start? And if they rush, and typically as a marker, I'll know if they get the first 3 questions wrong, they've rushed it. Do they slow down in the middle? I'll see 3-4 questions in the middle that aren't correct. Do they rush the end? Again, I'm seeing a couple of questions. When you see groups of questions, see what your child did at that point. So make sure that you've got both their marking, their answers, and what they're doing, because exam technique can really make a difference. So looking at that, if you are a student yourself and you're tuning in, firstly, well done for tuning in. The second thing is to evaluate your progress yourself. So think about, and again, if you're a parent joining as well, you can do this with your child. Think about where you did well and think about what was tricky. Because if you know what you're doing well, then you know how you can move through them. And if you know what you're finding tricky, then you can slow down a little bit on that question. So if I know that typically percentages is something that I struggle with, then I will make sure that I slow down for that question, that I triple check that question. It's one of the first ones that I check. If I know that I typically rush at the start of an exam, then I will go back and I will look at those marks. If I know that I rush a word, like a synonyms kind of question in English, I'll go back to those ones, because that's where we get those extra points, because suddenly we can start checking our answers instead of just looking at the answers. So self-evaluation and watching your child take those practice papers, looking at the rankings, looking at the spreader marks, all of that stuff and mock feedback should be quite helpful. It really should be telling you as a parent where to spend your time, where to spend your energy. Okay. So I've got someone who's asked in the comment a question. I love these. So please do, if you've got questions, put them in the comments. Even if I don't answer them on the live, I can answer them when I go back through the comments. So it says, do you have advice on 10 plus exam? I've got a year 4 student and they're sitting the 10 plus exam in November. It's a fairly similar process. So for your year 4, you've got a little bit longer, but you also have a year 4 student, so it's going to take a little bit longer. So it's a matter of practice. So start having a look at some of those practice exams. Start considering, are you going to do summer schools? Again, if you're looking at the 10 plus, they're fairly competitive. They overlap quite a lot with the 11 plus, and many, I can speak really only for ours, but I know that we take people who do 10 plus on our summer courses and our holiday courses because of the fact that the level is expected quite high, and also because we can adapt a little bit because we've got quite small class sizes. So definitely, again, it's all about getting your ducks in the row for summer. Because you've got till November, it doesn't need to be as intense over summer because they're not taking it the moment they get back to school. They've still got a bit of time, but you still want to make sure that you are continuing with that process over summer. You don't just let it stop for the couple of months, because if you let it stop, it's really hard to start it back up again. So for that, it really is about regularity, making sure that they are regularly revisiting material, that they are regularly practicing material. Obviously, there's certain topics that they won't need in terms of kind of 11 plus mapping the syllabus, but do spend time going over those 10 plus practice papers. They can be quite tricky. They can be challenging. Okay, so for mock exams, what band should a child be in to understand that a child is fine and generally ready for exams? So some mock exam providers will band students, some don't, some rank them, some provide just a spread, and some provide the individual percentage scores of the whole cohort. So it's all completely different. And the same thing for practice papers. So what I would say is it's about what you can learn from the mock as opposed to the mark from the mock. Now, we were all interested in the mark. All students are interested in marks. But we're looking at what patterns can we get. We are looking for the highest mark possible. So again, banding wise, I'm not certain in terms of which bandings you're talking about, but I am aiming with my students for the highest marks possible. So if they're below a band, if 10 is the top, then that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that top banding. Again, it depends on which schools you're applying for. Super selective schools, you've got to have a higher score than individuals. So without knowing exactly what your child is doing, where they're applying, etc., ultimately, the advice that I always give to people who get hold of me with regards to mocks, and we give it in the group as well, is to make sure that they are scoring as high as they possibly can, that you are using the mocks, you're using the practice papers to look at exactly what you need to focus on. And that you are getting that feedback from the exam provider as to where they are in terms of their cohort. Because if their cohort is all in band 9 and your child's in band 8, then that tells you that they need some more work. If everybody's in band 9 and yours is in band 10, again, that shows you that maybe they're ahead of the curve. So hopefully that helps. Okay, my son is good when he's doing homework or at home exams, but he gets messed up when we go for mocks, especially comprehension. Okay, comprehension and SPAG, how do we deal with it? So there's a couple of things. The first is that it sounds like the mock exam process for him is maybe a little bit stressful. And so talking with him about ways that he can focus himself in the exam, it's very different taking an exam with other students. Even we see it when we do online mocks. We see students who are looking at what everybody's doing. It can be quite distracting. It can be quite a stressful situation. So helping him to manage that stress and helping him to have ways of coping with those exams. The other thing is to consider at home whether it's something that he is doing on his own or whether it's something he's not doing on his own. Is he independently working at home? If he's not, that's the point where he needs to be independently working to show you exactly what he's doing. Ultimately, we expect students to drop a bit in the exam because of the fact that it's an unfamiliar place, because of the fact that the pressure is there. The best thing to do is to have tips, technique around comprehension, spelling, punctuation, and grammar. And by SPAG, I'm assuming you mean the correction sentences, usually at the end of certain papers. With those, again, it suggests that maybe he's rushing them. I would look at, is he finishing those papers quickly in mocks? If you can find out, that would be useful. If not, is he finishing them quickly at home? Is he being made to check them at home and he's not remembering to do that in a mock exam situation? If so, what can you give him that's going to be a routine so he remembers? Or is he just looking through the answers and just going, I've got an answer for everything? Typically, I find that with comprehension. They'll just go, there's an answer, there's an answer, there's an answer, there's an answer. I've checked. And actually, that's not checking, that's just looking. So look at what exactly is going wrong. But those would be my big things. The other thing that I would consider is the level of those comprehensions. So if he's going for MOPS and he's doing comprehension, can you get hold of the comprehensions? Are they trickier, or maybe they're non-fiction, yours are fiction? Look at the differences. Again, one of the things that we like to focus on is, especially around this point, introducing students to different styles of texts, especially for the super selective schools, looking at non-fiction text, looking at different kind of poetry, old language, that kind of stuff that doesn't come up all that often, because we're mainly looking at fiction. But with super selective schools, it always helps to have that preparedness. And also it helps them generally with their comprehension skills. So it's something that we look at. Tips for creative writing. So we have both a comprehension and a creative writing course. They're coming up next week. So I would have to say, do come along to the creative writing course. Do feel free to drop me a message. I'll talk to you all about it. But in terms of creative writing, one of the things that I really, really like getting students to do is, my set is not with me because it's actually at the students that I teach over here in the Bahamas. I use Rory story cubes. I love these things. Absolutely love them. They are cubes with different pictures on every single side. We take one of them, we roll it, and we give ourselves 2 to 3 minutes, not very long, to write something about what is on there. And it gets them very quickly working on a topic. So yesterday we were using them and we rolled jellyfish. So we've got a load of animal ones. That means we've got 3 minutes to write something on jellyfish, just a descriptive piece, no story, nothing. It's just description. And it gets students really focused on those literary techniques. So jellyfish, go. And we have to think, right, okay, what can I put down in terms of sentences to describe jellyfish? So we had definitely the word tentacles flying around. We had translucent, we had luminescent. We had angry red welts was a big phrase because we talked about the jellyfish wrapping its tentacles around somebody's leg and stinging them. I think it was the pain of 1,000 needles was another one. And all we're doing there is just focusing on some of the literary techniques. It's quick. It's really easy to build into a day. It's quite fun because I do it with them and we both write what we can think up. And it's really short and it helps them with that descriptive part. Description is often where students will fall down with creative writing because they often got lots of action and that isn't very easy to mark. So we're looking at trying to make them more descriptive. How do we get kids to recheck their math questions? Okay, so there's a much longer piece with this. I spend 3 hours on exam technique when I teach summer courses. So 6 hours on exam technique when I do summer courses. So I do a Friday lesson with my students on our summer courses on Fridays where we do a mock in the morning and then we go through the paper in the afternoon and we look at where all of the exam technique-y bits go. And rechecking is one of them. You do not have to solve the question again. You can consider doing the question backwards, for example. So let's say some of them you can't do backwards, but some of them you can estimate, some of them you can guesstimate and see, right, am I in the right ballpark? So let's say we're talking about 5 people going to a cinema and there's 3 adults and adult tickets cost £5 and there's 2 children and children's tickets cost £3. Simple kind of math question there. I know that I'm expecting the answer to be approximately, and I can approximate, or I can work backwards. So I can say, let's take away a child. So let's take away 3. Let's take away another child, take away 3. Am I left with 15? So can I work that backwards? And we're not talking about necessarily doing it again, but we are talking about doing it in a different way. Often if they do it again, they'll make the same mistake because they can see their answer. So they'll just make the same error. I like to try and give them a different way of thinking about it. And whether that is doing it backwards, whether that's estimating it, whether that is looking at the question and eliminating, if you've got multiple choice, eliminating all the silly answers, and then working it out between 2. So really there's lots of different methods for rechecking math questions. As I said, 6 hours worth of stuff I can't put down into 5 minutes, but those are some of them. And then you're looking at things like wordings, looking at making sure they're aware of the wording, they're not being tripped up with the wording, that the timings are there. Exam technique. Honestly, I am a massive proponent of exam technique, working on it. And I think it probably can bring around a 10% increase if it's done really well. So it is something that's definitely worth looking into. Okay, so I think, again, if you do have more questions, please do ask them down. I think, okay, this is a slide that I just wanted to show everybody, because some of you who are watching me right now might be thinking, but I'm not at this point. You know, I started the 11 plus process late, or I've just started the 11 plus process. I've only just realized that actually there are grammar schools in our area, or we're moving and we've realized that there are grammar schools. And I want you to be aware of these steps that we tend to think about. We tend to think about foundations. You'll hear us talk about foundations on the group. You'll hear people mention, you know, when a child's quite young, to work on foundations. Then we look at the specifications, we practice the skills, and we then move into short assessments. It may be that your child is still doing those kind of short questions. You want to, at this point, if they're year 5, look at how much more of that specification do they need to do. So is it that they've got loads to do? Is it that actually there's only a couple of little bits? If there's a couple of little bits, I'd start on some practice papers. I'd start on some home papers maybe, just to get them used to doing this, and also to see how much they've taken in. If they are a long way away, don't put them in for mocks, because again, they'll end up at the tail end of the ranking and it will stress you out and it will stress them out. Or if you do, make sure that you're aware of how you get your results back, and then you can go through and say, we haven't done this bit yet. So if you've just made that decision, you've just decided, I'm going to go for the 11 plus and we're going to give it a go, then don't worry so much about some of the things that I've been saying, I suppose, just because of the fact that those mock exams, they are quite near to the real thing. So just be aware. Other things to consider as we start to go towards summer, and I said I'll come back and I'll talk about what we do with 3 months, 2 months, 1 month. But let's consider how we make revision fun. We're starting to move into summer. We're starting to think about the schedule, that schedule that we stick on the fridge. What are we going to do in there that's going to make revision fun? Is it going to be a point where your child turns around and teaches you a topic, and this becomes their lesson of the week or the lesson of the day? And it's something that they look forward to. Is it that you're going to be getting out the board games? Is it that you know that you're going to be taking a long weekend here? Is it that you are aware of kind of healthy mind, healthy body? And I know Saba's got a whole unit in her course all about this. And it's all about, you know, making sure that we look after ourselves mentally as well as physically. So is there a part in your schedule that is for exercise? Is there a part for you guys to go out and kick a ball about in the park? Think about what you're doing. Think about what you're doing in terms of going forwards, in terms of summer, and what order you're going to be doing everything in. Try and keep a variety if you're going forward, and trying to make sure that everything is still, there's no burnout, there's no kind of boredom, there's no points where a child is really struggling. All right. So hopefully, I've just got a slide that just says coming up. Hopefully that has helped. Coming up will be ideally another live, where hopefully Saba will let me go live again, and I'll be back to help you guys out. As always, I want to say thank you to Saba, who runs the 11 plus journey. She lets me come on, she lets me talk to you guys, which is wonderful. Do check out, she's done this really great online course, and it's all about how to prepare yourselves and your child and go through things all the way from kind of school selection all the way up to the exams. So I think I did put a link on the slides a little bit earlier. And if you are looking at summer courses, or indeed you're looking next week for a May half-term course, and you would like to speak to me, just drop me a message. Honestly, just drop me a message. I'd be more than happy to chat. Hopefully it has been enjoyable. Hopefully you have found it useful, and you know where I am. We're always on the group. We're always here to help. Everyone who is admin here on the group is always here to help, and one of the best things about the 11 plus journey is just how helpful it can be for parents who are going through this process. So thank you ever so much for watching me. I'm off to the beach because I'm currently not in the UK. I'm going to let you guys get back to your tea, and thank you, and I will speak to you soon. Thanks ever so much then. Bye bye.